All right, good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. and ask that we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everyone. All right, we'll move on to item number 3, which is public comment. Rory, have we received any public comments?
We have not.
We have not. Okay. So we'll move on to item number 4, which is approve the minutes from the August 18, 2020 regular meeting. Can I have a motion to do so? Motion by Anne Marie, second by Trish, by a show of hands. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. The chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Next item, item number 5, first Selectmen's report. So I have an update on the finances, both how we finished fiscal year 20 and how we are looking in fiscal year 21. So let's start with fiscal year 21. Obviously, that's of concern. We had a lot of protections built into the budget because of the COVID crisis. We wanted to make sure we would be able to weather any storms, particularly a shortage on the revenue side. And we'll talk about fiscal year 20 in a minute and how that kind of closed out. But just as a comparison, so last year through the end of August, we had collected 46.89% of what we needed to. This year through the end of August, and we still don't have everything in as of yet, we have collected 46.83%. So right now we are 0.06% off of last year's pace, which is very good. Keep in mind though, that we need to collect about $211,000 more. So we're in the ballpark. You know, we had expected it would be substantially worse, and it's not, so that is a positive. We're going to keep the spending freezes and everything in place just to make sure. Let's see how we are when we get through September and maybe into October. And then at that point, we could take a look at pulling back some of the spending freezes and looking at some specific purchases that need to be made. So all in all, we are in good shape so far. But again, we're going to remain cautious so we don't run into any problems. For fiscal year 20, that year was a little bit of a challenge, as you can imagine. We started making plans in January right away once we realized that this was a pandemic and it was starting to spread. It would eventually get to the United States, the impact it would have on us. So we went through and we were able to have a surplus of $682,000 on our expense side. That was delivered, kind of spread throughout the budget from the police department, economic development, fire department, general government, public works, recreation, and the Board of Education. So amongst all of those departments, and on the expense side, we had a surplus of $682,000. The problem was on the revenue side. We had a deficit of $966,000. The biggest driver in that was the grant that we had expected to get with regards to the closeout of Chapel Lopresti School. That was $300,000. And we also had some revenue shortages with recreation on our assessments. Our overall tax collection, we ended up about $188,000 short. So that $966,000 shortfall in revenue against the $682,000 surplus in expenses gives us a projected deficit of $284,000. So all things considered, $57 million budget with everything that we went through, that's not all that bad. So we'll be able to absorb that with the use of general fund. Not going to be a problem on that our end, not really going to affect our finances at all. In our conversations with Standard & Poor, we had those discussions with them. They wanted to know how we would handle a shortfall and things like that. So they're aware of that. So there should be no danger to our bond rating or anything like that. This is the reason why we spent so much time building up our fund balance, our reserves, to address these situations in an emergency, so we don't have to go back and tax the residents or ask the residents for more. So that is a positive there as well. So the final deficit number will come out once the audit is completed. The audit is generally completed at some point in the month of December and then filed for January. But I will keep you updated as things move. So that closes the first Selectmen's report. And we will go on to item number 6, discussion, take possible action regarding George J. Hummell Little League tax abatement. In your packets, you have a letter from the treasurer of George J. Hummell Little League, and I'll read that into the record. To the Board of Selectmen, on behalf of the George J. Hummell Little League, I would like to request an abatement of the property tax on our property at 12 Chestnut Street. As you know, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The issue which causes the tax collector to bill George J. Hummell Little League stems from the stipulation in the agreement in 1950, in which Dr. John Casagrande donated the property to George J. Hummell Little League, with the understanding that in the event of the dilution of the league, the property reverts back to the Casagrande family. In previous years, you granted an abatement of the tax, and we are requesting a similar abatement this year. And then sincerely, Christy, who is the treasurer of George J. Hummell Little League. Also attached is the tax bill that of the assessment for that property at 36 Mills. The total tax due was $6,131.16. Every year, it's been the practice of this board to waive the taxes due to George J. Hummell Little League. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion that the town of Seymour abate the property taxes due on 12 Chestnut Street for George J. Hummell Little League for the grand list October 2019 in the amount of $6,131.16.
So moved.
Motion by Bob, second by Al. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Okay, item number 7 is executive session. Now, before we go into executive session, I'm going to ask Rich if you can just comment on 7B, so everyone is aware of what's going on, and then we'll make the motion to go into executive session.
And I might say something on 7A as well, Mr. President.
Absolutely. Yep.
On 7A, I don't require that. If you recall, I forwarded a letter to you that has been forwarded to the Board of Selectmen dealing with a particular issue regarding the formation of the WPCA that should be corrected, and we can do that in public session.
Okay, we do have that item. That's
and
item number 8. Yep,
that's
perfect.
item number 8. So I don't require an executive session on 7A. If that's there for me, I'm not requiring that tonight because we're dealing with the formation issue under item 8.
Okay.
Item B is something I'm going to give you something a little new, a little something different, so that in the future it will be handled a little differently. No action will need to be taken on item 7B, the police union contract. That's not to say that we don't have business tonight, and that's not to say we're not going to talk and meet concerning it. But what I'm saying is we do not need it to vote to go into executive session in a duly noticed proper meeting under Connecticut state law, because Connecticut state law was changed. 1-200, the definition of meeting was changed. And you may recall, I talked about some of this when we talked about an issue involving a personnel search committee. So 1-200 was changed to basically state that a meeting under the Freedom of Information Act does not include a discussion concerning the strategy or negotiations with respect to collective bargaining. It includes some other things too, but for our purposes tonight, what that means under Connecticut state law, when we want to talk about negotiations and strategy concerning collective bargaining, we can do it as a group, we can do it as a full board, we can do it anytime we want, and it need not be noticed as a meeting under the Freedom of Information Law, and you do not need to go into executive session because you are holding a non-meeting under Connecticut state law. I would just caution you though, that the topics that are discussed should remain confidential because of course collective bargaining is a very sensitive area. So especially your strategy with regard to what you're trying to achieve. So the way many municipalities and boards of education are dealing with it, they're holding these non-meetings after, if you will, the properly agendaed meeting with the items in compliance with Connecticut state law. So what I would ask everyone to do when we get to the end of this meeting, when we adjourn, stay on the line, don't disappear. Rory's going to, as if I understand it, kill the public feed at that point, and you're going to have a non-meeting to take care of important business with respective collective bargaining negotiations.
Okay.
All right. So
All right.
that's a lot, and thank you for bearing with me on that.
Nope.
On 7C, if I may, we do require an executive session. And the purpose of that is to go in and talk about an attorney-client privileged communication under 1-210 of the Connecticut General Statutes as permitted by 1-200, specifically the portion dealing with executive sessions. So with that, that's all I have to say in public session on those topics
Okay.
at the moment.
And Rich, I would like to just have some conversation on just with the board. Just make sure there's no questions on the document that you presented. Is that okay?
Well, we can make it about the one that I sent. Yes, there is an attorney-client privilege document that I did send
Correct.
at the last meeting and before that as well. So we can go in on that basis should you want to discuss that attorney-client privilege. It's the same basis, 1-210, as permitted under 1-200.
Perfect. Okay, so with that, I will entertain a motion that the Board of Selectmen go into executive session at 7:16 p.m. to discuss items 7A and 7C as presented. And we will invite Town Council Rich Paterla, Chief of Staff Rory Burke, and Emergency Management Director Tom Amy to join us.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Chris, second by Anne Marie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. So what we'll do is, Rory, if you can put everyone in the waiting room, what we'll do is we will address item 7C first. Once that is done, we will ask Tom to go into the waiting room as well. We'll then discuss 7A. We'll then come back out and move on to item number 8. So Rory, can you do that, please?
Yeah, I'll start putting people in.
All right, so Anne Marie, myself.